Hello students, welcome Hoshamdeep and Hosh Galdanis. Today we are going to discuss a new topic and that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. As we all know that Jane Eyre is another Victorian novel and Charlotte Bronte is one of the prominent and rather representative women literary figures of Victorian era. So let's start our discussion. Here are some beautiful quotations I have selected for you guys because personally Jane Eyre is my favorite character and it's one of my favorite Victorian novels, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Let's discuss these quotations. First of all, it is said by Jane Eyre, the protagonist of the novel, "I am no bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will." Now, in the very quotation, we can find the zest of uh, feminist or women independence or women empowerment, or somehow a feminist sort of trend can be found in this very quotation of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Then next quotation is another very interesting quotation. "Conventionality is not morality." Now, another debunking thing is that she in this novel, Charlotte Bronte, has tried to distinguish between conventionality and morality. So let's discuss all these things in details. Here is the list of the contents we are going to discuss in the discussion of Jane Eyre. Introduction, plot summary, major themes, characters, quotations and important debates. First of all, we are going to discuss introduction and plot summary of this novel. And in introduction, we are going to discuss two things: the introduction of the author and then the background of the novel Jane Eyre. First of all, here is the background of the author, means background and introduction of Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte was an English novelist of 19th century. She is best known for her novel Jane Eyre. She was born on April 21st, 1816, Yorkshire, England. She was the most brilliant and ambitious girl from her four siblings, means four Brontes. They were three sisters and one brother, and that's why they are called four siblings. She was raised in a staunch Anglican setup. Her father was a clergyman. That's why their setup was extremely religious. She worked as a governess as well as a teacher, but she used to miss her sisters, so she returned home. Then she wrote a book of poetry in collaboration with her other two sisters, and from here began the literary journey, literary career of Charlotte Bronte and the other Brontes. And they are known as Bronte sisters in the history of English literature. Her sisters Emily and Anne were also writers. In 1847, she published her semi-autobiographical novel Jane Eyre. Yes, the novel we are going to discuss today is Jane Eyre, and about Jane Eyre, it is famous that it's a semi-autobiographical novel. It is considered as her literary classic. She had also penned a few other novels, including Shelley and Villette. Jane Eyre was her first novel. She had to face criticism due to an unconventional approach towards women's lives and empowerment. As we can see in the first two slides, I have just mentioned a couple of statements, a couple of dialogues of Jane Eyre, and they are extremely debunking, and they are showing the zest of women empowerment in those words. So uh, that's why it is said that the novel had to face a severe criticism. Why? Because it was raising voice for the rights of women or for women empowerment. Now come to the background of Jane Eyre, means the background of the novel Jane Eyre. The novel sounds a semi autobiographical novel as it portrays the struggle of a little girl, Jane. Uh, Now, these incidents of little Jane's lives, they are very near to the circumstances of Charlotte Bronte's own life as a child. It's the story of a girl who struggled hard to win a life she deserves after the hard struggle as an orphan child. Even the youth time of Jane working as a governess seems relevant to Bronte's own struggle, as she also has to work for Sedgwick family as a governess. Now, this is how the novel becomes a semi-autobiographical novel. Let's come to the plot summary. Jane Eyre was an orphan, young and unwanted child. In the plot of the novel Jane Eyre, Jane Eyre as a child was an orphan, young and unwanted child. She was also a bit egoist and stubborn sort of girl. She was kept deprived of her desires as a child. This had made her furious, a furious person, a furious child. She was sent to Lowood School. It was a charity institution, means charity based institution. It was run by, I am just forgetting the name of that character. The name is mentioned over there in the novel, who was running the institute, the charity. And it had some swear rules, some strict rules and regulations. It was run by a harsh man, Mr. Uh, Brocklehurst, and he was also a very harsh sort of a person, a very uh, stubborn and very rough sort of personality. Here, Jane she stayed over there, she studied over there, and finally she became a teacher here, and she became an expert of French language. Her first job was at Thornfield Hall, where she started working as the tutor and governess of a little child, Adelaide. Now, again, here we can find the element of autobiography, because uh, Charlotte herself, she had to work as a governess as well as a teacher for Sedgwick family. And again, in this very novel, Jane Eyre, we can find Jane working in the same terms. Working at she's found working at Thornfield Hall as a teacher and as a governess of a little girl, Adelaide, because Adelaide was she only knew one language, and that was French, and that's why the family had to hire a tutor who was expert in French language, and they hired Jane. She was now Jane was an egoist girl, the young Jane, the grown-up Jane, who was a tutor and governess, who had got a job as a tutor and governess of a little girl, Adelaide. That very girl, Jane, the teacher, the tutor, the governess, she has all those abilities in her characters. And she was an egoist girl with high moral standards. She fell in love with her master, Mr. Edward Rochester, and she actually saved his life, and uh, from there started the love story. And it wasn't actually love story, or was it really a love story or not? We will discuss it later. Well, she fell in love with her master, Rochester, and she actually saved his life from an incident of fire that was and the reason of the fire was, well, the fire was burned by Bertha Mason, and Bertha Mason is another character of this novel, and she is represented, she is portrayed as an insane wife of Miss Rochester, and she was kept hidden, and she was from the rest of the world. She was kept hidden from the rest of the world. Why? Because she was insane, and she was portrayed as a monstrous character. And why Bertha Mason was a monstrous character, and why she was a Jamaican, and she was a Jamaican woman, and that's why she was an insane woman. That why and how of this character just dragged towards another discussion, and this drag us towards the discussion of post-colonial theory and the analysis of the character of Bertha Mason and of the whole novel in terms of post-coloniality and in the terms of post-colonial theory. But it's not the topic of today. We will discuss this in the later lectures, inshallah, in the later discussions. I am planning to start discussing theory with you guys as well, but today we are only discussing and Jane Eyre as a novel. Okay. Rochester also fell for her, and they planned to marry. On the wedding day, Jane came to realize that he was already married to a mad woman, to an insane woman, and that same woman was Bertha Mason, the Jamaican woman. Jane was also in love with Rochester, yet she did not want to live as his mistress because it was against her ego, it was against her self-esteem, and it was against the moral and religious values of the time. So she left the place, and after that she met three siblings named Rivers. She became a friend of those, and eventually they discovered that they were cousins, and it was this sort of unexpected twists and unexpected miracles and miraculous happenings were so common in the Victorian novels. This sort of unexpected plot twists were so common in the novels of Victorian time period. So they suddenly they discovered that they were cousins, and soon Jane got wealth from an unexpected relations inheritance, and then after then Saint John Rivers, who was the brother of the two sisters, they were three siblings, and Saint John was interested in marrying Jane, and he expressed his interest in marrying with Jane Eyre, and he was a sort of a cold personality. Why? Because he had devoted himself for the services of religion, and his reason for marrying Jane was also that he was deciding to go to India for preaching Christianity, and he considered Jane as the best companion in terms of spreading his mission of the teachings of Christianity and Christ. So Saint John was interested in marrying Jane and wanted her to accompany him to India, as he was concerned to become a missionary in India. Jane was thinking to accept this proposal when she felt she felt a vision. Now this was again a very spiritualistic aspect of this novel, that the very moment she was walking with John Rivers and in a place, she suddenly felt a vision of Rochester crying and calling her, and after that she planned to have a visit of Thornfield Hall. Jane decided to visit Thornfield Hall. I'm sorry, here is a typographical mistake. I have just forgot to just type the word to visit. So Jane decided to visit Thornfield Hall, and when she reached there, she found the debris of the place. Means the whole place was burnt and was turned into debris. She found Rochester devastated after the loss of his house and business in result of Bertha's attempt to burn the house. She decided to not to leave him alone. Why? Because he got blind in that accident, and that in result of that accident he had lost his vision, he had lost his sight, he had lost his business, his place. So Jane decided to not to leave him alone, as to her it was the time of a balanced relationship. Now why it was the time of a balanced relationship? Because before that, Mr. Rochester was extremely egoist man, and he wasn't ready to surrender his ego for Jane, and now it was the time when he was in need of Jane. So on humanitarian grounds, she considered it the best time for a balanced relationship. So she decided to marry him. Here are the major themes: love and family, independence, social norms, gender roles, religion, desire versus sensibility, spirituality and supernaturalism. But we will discuss the themes in our next video. Thank you so much for today. Allah Hafiz.